For today, in the name of freedom, we take the battle to them.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have finally had the pleasure of checking out Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. Of course, for those of you who tuned in for that nearly 4-hour video in February of this year, I know, very delayed, where I ranked every single movie I watched in 2024, of which there were 102, the Mission Impossible franchise was a part of that list. Yes, it only took me until 2024 to watch the Mission Impossible franchise, leave me alone. But when I watched them, I was absolutely blown away, mainly because there were 7 movies and there was not a single bad one. I was absolutely flabbergasted by this. This was ridiculous, dude. I feel like most people agree that Mission Impossible 2 is probably the weakest of the franchise, but even that, if that is your worst film in a franchise, you are damn good. And I think that the best way to sum up the last few Mission Impossible movies are, like, from Ghost Protocol onwards. You could tell me that any of them is your favorite, and I could not argue with you. Because, oh my god, they're so freaking good, dude. I know Fallout is most people's favorite, but I'm a Ghost Protocol guy. As of right now, Ghost Protocol is still my favorite Mission Impossible movie. Oh my god, I love this franchise. And obviously, Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, which was meant to be Dead Reckoning Part 2. I'm kind of happy that they changed it. This movie came out basically a month ago, and I have been wanting to watch it every single weekend. The weekend it came out, I was so excited to book. And then we sort of had a few too many drinks, and the hangover the next day was not fun. Saying that, I still brought the laptop down. I was like, guys, please let's book. My mom and sister called me insane. After that, it was just unfortunate event after unfortunate event. But good news is, first of all, I watched the movie. Obviously, I wouldn't be reviewing it if I didn't watch it. But secondly, immediately after this, I will be recording my review for both Heart Eyes and Final Destination Bloodlines. I have no idea when those are going to drop, but at least that's something to look forward to. So just to give you my overall thoughts on Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, I really enjoyed this movie. I sort of stayed away from reviews and stuff, just because, unlike, something like a Marvel movie or a horror movie, I sort of want to go into this without having any sort of idea of the general consensus about the movie. And now that I have watched it, it seems like I'm in agreement with most people, and that is that the first half is kind of all right, but then the second half is just awesome. Obviously this is, part 2 to the previous movie, which was Dead Reckoning, and, it was meant to be Dead Reckoning Part 1 and Part 2, as I said before. But this movie is bonkers. I am going to start off by saying that the story of this movie is probably the most complicated and most convoluted of all the Mission Impossible films. Obviously, with this being essentially, the continuation of the previous film, you would have thought, okay, well, obviously that was part 1, meaning with part 2, we can sort of get right into it. We know everything we need to know, and now this is going to be the aftermath of it. Not really. The first half of this movie is very exposition heavy, but I'm going to be honest with you, because everything is so complicated, I don't mind the exposition. Normally, I hate it when movies treat the audiences as if we're stupid, where they sort of like have to spell everything out. But with this movie, I actually genuinely needed it. I was so thankful that they did that. Because to be completely honest with you, without the exposition, I wouldn't have, sort of understood the connection to the rabbit's foot from Mission Impossible 3, and just a lot of things regarding the entity, to be honest. So the exposition, I think, was sorely needed. So that's one thing that I've seen a lot of people complain about, is like the first half being exposition heavy and them, sort of explaining everything very simply, which honestly I did not have a problem with at all, because as I said, I am a dumb human and I really needed that. So that was one thing. The second thing is people complaining about the overuse of flashbacks. Now, I watched all these movies last year. Really was not that long ago. But I could not have pieced together that that guy who was giving them the coordinates and stuff was the same guy from the vault in the very first film. I wouldn't have noticed that. So I think that the flashbacks in this film actually do work, because obviously 7 spy movies you would have needed to have watched. You're not going to remember everything. Which, by the way, I actually really liked that connection, that he was that guy who literally got absolutely destroyed by Ethan indirectly in that first movie. And the fact that he kept the knife was freaking, that was cool. That really was cool. Of course, there were flashbacks to that. There were flashbacks to the third film when the villain thought that he killed Ethan's wife. There were flashbacks to, I think, the previous movie. Actually, no, I don't think so. But basically, that first bit of the film, I believe the title sequence only begins like 20 minutes in, which honestly, I respect it. I 100% respect it. Usually, I'm going to be honest with you, I didn't really feel the excitement of the title sequence this time, because usually, I don't know how many times I just said the word usually. I'm so sorry. It is midnight. You have like the bomb being set off or whatever, and you like follow the flame of the trail of the bomb, and then you see the title card and things like that. Here, it was sort of just a montage of things from the previous films, and you know, it was cool. It was cool. I just feel like it could have been done better. But enough complaining. Let's get down to the nitty gritty. So, one thing that is very different about this movie is that the team dynamic isn't really felt, because Ethan is on his own for most of the film, and Benji and Grace are basically together for the movie. And unfortunately, they do it. They kill off Luther. And I'm going to be honest with you, when I watched all the movies, as I was watching them, Luther always struck me as the guy of like, if they're gonna kill someone in the final reckoning, it's either gonna be him or Ethan. But I feel like it's gonna be him. And unfortunately, yes, Luther did die, and it was a sad scene. It was absolutely horrible to watch, and that means it was done well. I also loved the little recording that he had, that he did for Ethan, that plays at the end once Ethan lands on the ground. I absolutely loved that. Really, really did. You know what I mean? So yeah, Ethan's by himself. He meets a couple of people, one of which, the lady that is on the submarine. The one with the cool eyes, and the one that goes, don't damage my suit, or whatever. She is, like, as soon as I saw her, I was like, I know you. And of course, she was in an episode of The Rookie. I can't remember if it was season 5 or 6, but basically she was Tim Bradford's new rookie, and she was like ex-military and everything, and she essentially just needed to sort of relax in life. So yeah, she was in The Rookie. I don't know why that's important information, but I just thought I'd share it with you. That is the best cop show, by the way. If you like cop shows, there is nothing that beats The Rookie. But anyway, back to Mission Impossible. Haley Atwell, I feel, didn't really shine as much in this movie as she did in the previous one. Um, like, I don't know. I feel like the best thing that came out of her character was that freaking hilarious scene of the not doctor, but the scientist dude, his wife teaching her how to command the wolves. That was absolutely hilarious, and honestly, probably her best scene of the movie. If not that, it's when she captures the entity. So yeah, that was pretty cool. Benji, hilarious as always, especially in the most tense, like part of the movie, or what's meant to be the most tense, and that is, following the whole process of cutting the wires, then plugging this thing in, getting the entity, all that. I love it when he's sort of just losing consciousness. He's like, just whatever you do, don't cut the. It's fantastic. It really, really was. And another character who, was way better in this movie than the previous one is Paris. I loved her. I really, really did. Especially like all her. She really was just like Drax. She was kind of like Drax from Guardians of the Galaxy, in that she just wanted to kill people. Yeah, I love it. Like when Benji's bleeding out and he's like, "Do you have any medical experience?" She's like, "I kill people." I loved her. I really, really did. She was a stan. I'm glad that they didn't kill her. Now, let me just talk about the villains of the movie. So, unlike the previous one, here Gabriel and the entity are no longer working together. Because obviously Gabriel failed to get the key in the last one, the entity has sort of just turned on him. And I love that first scene of him like running through the tunnels and the entity just locking the gates to prevent him from escaping. I loved that. And he was an alright villain, but his death was just so disappointing. Because one thing that this movie brings back, it doesn't do it all the time, which I'm happy for. The movie overall has a very somber tone, but there's a lot of jokes brought in here. Not as funny as Ghost Protocol, but I'm happy that there are some jokes here. Like when Ethan is like beating up that guy who like supports the entity. He's like, "You spend too much time on the internet." I feel like that was I don't know. I feel like that didn't really fit the moment, but uh, Gabriel's death was just absolutely disappointing because obviously he was a big villain. Obviously not the best, but he was a big one. And him and Ethan are obviously hanging off the top of the plane, and he's like, "Only one of us has a parachute." Ah! And then he just goes and just like hits the thing, hits the fin of the plane like it's a freaking Looney Tunes cartoon. That was just like, it was bloody, sure, but it just didn't feel like the death that a Mission Impossible villain should have. Even like Henry Cavill's character, he just fell off a cliff. But at least he got, the Two-Face look. At least he got half his face burnt and melted before that. I feel like Gabriel just sort of getting stabbed in the head by the tail fin of the plane and it being played off in such a comedic way was just terrible. I really do think so. But let me just get on to some of the best scenes of the movie. So, the one that had me clenching the armrest of my seat was, oh my god, the submarine sequence. So when obviously Ethan needs to get like the core or whatever of the entity, he has to enter the submarine. And my god, the torpedoes, oh my freaking lord. The torpedoes stressed me out, I was like, oh my god, Ethan. I know Ethan won't die in that scene, but it was so tense, and that just shows you how good the movie was. I think that probably is my favorite scene of the film, is that torpedo part where he has to like slowly go around them without touching anything, and oh my god, it is so tense. It is amazing. So there was that, and of course, they did that once, and then once he got it, he had to evade the torpedoes again, which, oh my god. That scene was just so tense. I honestly didn't even want to breathe at that moment because I was just so focused on what's going on. I was like, oh my god, Ethan, please be careful. So there was that, and then of course, it's on the poster, the biplane scene. So, my god, Tom Cruise, you crazy son of a bitch. This man climbed on top of the plane, he entered the wrong seat, and then he had to go back to the correct pilot seat. And then he, managed to cling onto Gabriel's plane and fight off Gabriel there. And then, try and pilot that plane. It was amazing. I'm so glad that they didn't show off too much of that sequence because really, that is the biggest action sequence of the film. It's not like Dead Reckoning or Fallout or, like Rogue Nation where there's several sequences throughout the movie. The first half of the movie is, as I said, a lot of exposition, a lot of talking, and then most of the action comes in the second half, and even then, it's not that many scenes. But I have to mention, obviously, South Africa, baby. I kid you not, when Ethan got into that little chamber thing and the entity was talking to him about this doomsday place or whatever, doomsday chamber, and he says South Africa, I just heard this gasp throughout the audience, myself included. I was like, oh, please go there. Please come here. I was so freaking happy. And honestly, there was a part of me in the third act when we did go to South Africa. I was like, please don't tell me they just filmed in a random place and called it South Africa. Please tell me they actually came to my country and filmed. That would be so cool. And I did a quick Google search and they actually did. So it says on Google that they filmed scenes in the Drakensberg Mountains, which absolutely beautiful place. Honestly, Drakensberg Mountains is essentially like the paradise. Well, I wouldn't say the paradise, but it's like the peaceful part of South Africa, or at least near where I am. If you just want to get away from the world, just be surrounded by grass and mountains, that's where you go. It's peaceful. It really, really is. And Blythe River Canyon near the town of Hoedspruit in Kruger National Park, as well as Port Edward. Very interesting. I mean, it also says they filmed in London and Norway, which really no one gives a shit. Every movie films in London and wherever, freaking America. Who cares? They came to South Africa, baby! I was so happy. So yeah, sorry, I just had to go off on that little tangent. I was so happy about that. Another fun fact is, while filming her action scenes for this movie, Hayley Atwell was basically 9 months pregnant. Oh my god. I love her. I absolutely love her. Obviously, as it was really sad to not see more previous characters return, like Jeremy Renner's character. But, you still have like the OGs, you got Kittredge, who is still, an antagonist in this movie. And speaking of which, I loved the whole little IMF issue that they had going on, because one thing that a movie like Oppenheimer gets praised for is showing the just how terrible these decisions are that certain people have to make, certain people in power. I wouldn't say have to make, but the decisions that they do make. In Oppenheimer, obviously they are deciding where to drop Hiroshima, where to drop Hiroshima, fucking hell, where to drop Little Boy and Fat Boy, and they just go, oh yeah, we'll chuck it in Japan, don't bomb this place, I like that place, I like to go on holiday, and just chuck it there. These giant world-changing decisions, and they are just throwing it around like it is absolutely nothing, like it doesn't affect anyone. But in this movie, Angela Bassett's character, who is the president, apparently, she's given the choice of either just letting everyone die or sacrificing 100 million people in the United States. And that is a crazy decision that she has to make. And honestly, I like that they did that, because she isn't an evil character. She's a good person. And you can see it. Obviously, she chose not to do that. She did not want to do that at all. So, yeah, I mean, she was like, you know what? I am not gonna have these people's blood on my hands. Go fuck yourselves. That's basically what she said, okay? But yeah, like it's just a lot of things like that that add to this like somber tone of the film. It's not a very happy film, you know. It's not a like an action-packed movie from beginning to start. Which honestly, I'm just gonna say this now. The movie is like 2 hours 40, 2 hours 50, whatever it is. It sort of flew by. I didn't really feel like it was too long or anything. Which, you know, for a movie that long, that's surprising. But the question is, do I think that this is a suitable end for the Mission Impossible franchise? You know what? I am going to say yes. I think that this is not just a good place to end for the character of Ethan Hunt, who I was 101% sure they were going to kill off in this movie, but it's a good choice to end off with his character. It's a good place to end off with our team, like Benji and things like that. People like that, sorry. But also, it's a good place to stop before they get too ridiculous. Because a lot of people were not a fan of the entity in Dead Reckoning. They were like, no, this is too ridiculous, too far fetched. I mean, in 2025, is it really that far fetched, guys? So, yeah, I feel like these movies would probably just go off the rails if they went on too long. It would be like Fast and Furious, basically. So, yeah, that is my review of Mission Impossible The Final Reckoning. Oh, wow. Look, I really liked this movie. I think that it was really good. It's not the best Mission Impossible film. I still feel like between Ghost Protocol and Dead Reckoning, I think that those are probably the ballpark for the best. Which, speaking of which, Dead Reckoning, where was Vanessa Kirby? You didn't bring in Sue Storm? What the fuck? But anyway, that was just my overall thoughts. I really, really enjoyed this movie. Probably, I think it's the best movie of 2025. Between honestly, my top three. I'm not gonna say which order it is. Thunderbolts, Mission Impossible: Final Reckoning, and Predator: Killer of Killers. They are sort of on the same level. It's a solid year so far. Apart from a Minecraft movie, everything that I've seen this year has been, decent to good. Well, decent to great, I mean. So yeah, that is my review of Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. Please let me know what you guys thought of this movie down in the comment section below. Do you think I was too lenient on this movie? Did you think it was maybe too long? And yeah, I think that is pretty much it. So, if you did enjoy this video, then please leave a like, subscribe, and goodbye.